Welcome back to another Micmac Tabletop Review. Today we'll be taking a look at the Hi-Point 995TS 9mm Pistol Caliber Carbine. I picked this Hi-Point model 995TS PCC, or Pistol Caliber Carbine, up at a local gun shop last year. I don't usually pay much attention to low-budget firearms like Hi-Points, but the 995 actually has a fairly good reputation for being affordable, fun to shoot, and reliable. It was used, but I only paid $200 out the door for it, so I don't think I took too much of a risk. Now, since the price for a new basic model 995 is only about $240, it might sound like I may have paid too much for this one. Perhaps, but a 995 with a crimson trace red dot would run closer to $440. In addition, this one came with 2 magazines and equipped with a 4-end grip and a tactical light and laser, although it was missing the typical Hi-Point carbine front and rear iron sights. You can see here where the iron sight had at least once been attached at one time. I do know that the 4-end grip isn't original because it's not a Hi-Point folding grip, and it sports a retractable bipod. Same for the tactical light and laser combo because it's a Highlight P3 GL unit, not one offered by Hi-Point, and the red dot is a Firefield unit. Oh yes, it's also missing the typical Hi-Point carbine sling and swivels. But since the gun was used, well, it's just that way often with used guns. True, overall there's nothing high-end here, but everything works. And I like that it was chambered for 9mm rounds, which are pretty cheap at the moment. About 30 cents a round locally for target rounds at last time I looked. And notice that it has a threaded barrel for attaching a compensator or suppressor. And it's got a 10-round and 15-round magazine. So basically, as it is, this carbine has all that I would want from a PCC. But a good question might be, what's the use of a PCC or Pistol Caliber Carbine anyhow? Some would say they're just range toys, but they could also be considered a solid home defense or a bug-out weapon. And there certainly is some logic in having firearms that can share the same ammo. So there's that. Also, given what I paid, I'm not too concerned about it getting knocked about. Still, junk is junk. So being a Hi-Point product, how does this gun check out? Did I waste my money or did I find a bargain? Let's find out. But before we go any further, let's make sure this gun is cleared first. And by the way, if you enjoy this review, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Now, if you subscribe to my reviews, you may recall that I did a video review of the Hi-Point CF380 pistol a few months ago. You can still see that review at episode 2025-12. The CF380 is probably one of the least expensive pistols you'll ever find. It's also downright chunky, and it might very well earn the title for the ugliest pistol ever made. No, it's not a great gun, but it works, and it is indeed quite popular. Frankly, that's the same thing I'd say about the Hi-Point 995 carbine. Not great, but it does work. Also, I'd have to say that the 995 is actually even more popular with quite a decent reputation. Hi-Point Firearms is an American manufacturer headquartered in Mansfield, Ohio. And Hi-Point Firearms are 100% American made. Hi-Point Firearms was founded in 1990 by Thomas Deeb, who they say focused on producing no-nonsense guns for no-nonsense shooters. Deeb's aim was to produce low-cost, safe, durable, and reliable guns. A working man's gun, if you will, backed by good customer support and a no-questions-asked lifetime guarantee. But to be honest, if you're an experienced avid shooter, I can understand how Hi-Point products would probably never come into mind. Price can be an attraction, but can also imply cheap, although that's not a word I agree with in describing this Hi-Point PCC carbine. Inexpensive, economical, low price, budget friendly, yes, but not necessarily cheap, which would imply poor quality. And with a downright huge array of caliber formats and options, along with a manufacturer's suggested retail price of $330 and actual sales closer to $250 new, you might understand why the Hi-Point Model 995 PCC has its fans as well as those who might be totally dismissive. As for packaging, this was a used gun, so I don't have the original packaging. But as I understand, a new Hi-Point 995 basic model would have come in a simple cardboard box along with one magazine, iron sights, slings and swivels, and the usual paperwork and lock. I've been told that there could have been a takedown tool included as well. It also is possible that you'll see one of the Hi-Point plastic cases, extended magazines, folding fore-end grip, red dot, and even a laser. All are Hi-Point options that are still available today. And Hi-Point parts and accessories are readily available and very reasonably priced. This 15-round magazine can be had for just $21, for example. And if I want to replace the missing iron sights on this gun, for example, Hi-Point has them for about $20 complete. As for specifications, the 995 carbine is available in .380, 9mm, 40 Smith & Wesson, 45 ACP, and 10mm. The overall length is 31 inches. Barrel length is 16.5 inches. There's a 19-inch barrel available, threaded 1/2 by 28. The weight is 6.5 pounds. The sights are fully rear adjustable. Capacity is 10-round magazine, but 15, 20, 30, and even a 50-round magazine are available. The stock is all-weather galvanized polymer with internal recoil buffer. We have a manual thumb safety here. The rails are Picatinny style, and there's a no questions asked lifetime warranty on this gun. Now before we hit the range, let's talk about this gun's function a bit. I've heard people call the high-power carbine ugly, but I don't know. Sure, it's not attractive, but I'd say it looks functional. My first impressions of the Hi-Point 995 was that it looks a little bulky, and certainly there's a lot of polymer here. But when you pick it up, yes, it's a bit heavy, but it doesn't feel bulky or overly plastic. It feels substantial, well built, like it means business. And look at these Picatinny rails. What more could you ask for? Note that we have a threaded barrel. Excellent. And on the other end, we have a galvanized stock with a built-in recoil buffer. Very practical and very cool. For the most part, yeah, the 995 looks a little odd, different, but not bad. More importantly, how does it shoot? For range work, I've installed my rugged Obsidian 9mm suppressor. This is my favorite 9mm suppressor, and I'm curious to see how well it quiets down this carbine. Overall, I think this gun has that Hi-Point chunky thickness look to it, but it's functional at the same time. Since I'm using a suppressor, I should warn you that using a suppressor can leave you with a dirtier gun than without. The 10-round magazine seems sturdy. Same for this 15-round magazine. Loading is made easier with the aid of a Maglula loader. The magazines are easy to seat, but require that I press them up to get the solid click, and I notice that it still rattles a little. The bolt on the left side can't be switched to the right. Same with the safety. And the safety has to be off to rack the bolt. Racking the bolt is a little heavy, measuring about 15 pounds, but the bolt handle is good size and the action is sure. Again, this gun is cleared. I've loaded a couple of dummy rounds for demonstration purposes here. So let's check out the trigger. Now note that this trigger is plastic. You're getting what you paid for, but probably more than you expected. Take-up is only about 1/8 of an inch. The pull is rather long, perhaps about 1/2 inch, and the weight measures an average of 7 pounds. The brake feels a little soft in my opinion, but consistent. Overall, I'd say the Hi-Point 995 carbine actually has a better trigger than you'd expect. Okay, let's get this gun out to the range. Here we are at the range. I'm using Winchester 115 grain full metal jacket target rounds. Since this carbine is equipped with a red dot and a laser, I'm just going to place the target all the way out to 75 feet, which is the maximum for this range. I zeroed the optics in at 24 feet earlier, so there might be some adjustment needed at 3 times the distance. Okay, let's see how we do. These are 6-inch targets. Okay, I'm way off, so let me make an adjustment here to the red dot. Alright, that's better. I'll fine-tune as we go, but I'd say that's actually pretty good. I hope you're impressed with how quiet this gun is with the rugged Obsidian 9mm suppressor attached. just excellent. Okay, let's try this training reflex target. The little targets here are about 2 inches in size. My eyes aren't what they used to be, so this probably isn't going to work too well for me. What's worse, I can make them out, but for some reason the lighting is reflecting off the target, making it difficult for the camera to get a good image. So I'm going to have to bring the target in to about 50 feet. That's better. Let's try the laser. I'd say that it's spot on for 50 feet. Very cool. Magazines tend to be a little finicky to seat and feel a little loose. I should tell you that light strikes began to occur at about 200 rounds. With the suppressor, this gun is getting really dirty. But also the charging handle seems to be rubbing on the slot here. If I twist it out just a little, it runs fine. I'm not sure if dirt and or friction here has contributed to that light strike issue. Otherwise, the gun feels good and there's no problems with accuracy that I can tell. When clean and oiled, this is a pretty good carbine. Very nice. And with this recoil buffer stock, very comfortable. I could shoot this gun all day. As for cons, well, I'm just going to say probably the worst complaint about Hi-Point products is that they're Hi-Point products. The fact is that many people tend to look down their noses at them, not just gun snobs. And I get that, given how the Hi-Point pistols are indeed so ugly and the carbine are viewed as heavy and bulky. But also because of their low cost, Hi-Point firearms are sometimes associated with crime. Yet primarily, you mostly hear that Hi-Point carbines are reliable and fun to shoot, and they'll shoot just about anything, including 200 grain semi-wad cutters. In fact, my internet search of Hi-Point 995 carbine complaints yields nothing of consistent significance, although magazine issues have been mentioned. So if you plan to use hollow point defensive rounds, for example, I strongly suggest that you make sure the magazines will feed properly and reliably. As for my personal complaints about the Hi-Point 995, as I mentioned, the charging handle began to rub on the side here, causing noticeable friction. If I twisted the handle out a little, charging was lighter and I no longer experienced light strikes. I added a small washer as a spacer to solve the problem, but I shouldn't have needed to do that. Also, this gun got really dirty after just 100 rounds, but I guess that could have been more the fault of the ammo and or the suppressor. And yes, there's a bulkiness to this carbine, and it just isn't compact or light. And yes, I agree, there's a lot of plastic here. So what about pros? Well, you've got to appreciate that the Hi-Point carbine was designed from the ground up as a carbine, and that you can get it in 380, 9mm, 40 Smith & Wesson, 45 ACP, and 10mm. Also, Hi-Point offers a good array of models, formats, features, and accessories. Hi-Point offers 18 different carbines in 9mm alone. That works out to a total of 76 different models of carbines. Who else offers that kind of selection? Customer support is excellent and availability of accessories is very good. And again, Hi-Points are 100% American made. Internet comments about Hi-Point carbines suggest good overall function and durability. In addition, you can expect great accuracy. Consistent 3-inch groupings at 50 yards is a common claim. Of course, low price is a major plus. No doubt you could certainly pay more for a good carbine, but you're not likely to get more in overall performance. But finally, importantly, you've got to appreciate the Hi-Point no questions asked lifetime guarantee. How many companies even offer that? And oh yes, I should admit that this carbine is just plain fun to shoot. To disassemble after checking the gun is cleared again, remove the magazine and make sure the safety is off. Then start by removing the front sight, but mine doesn't have a front sight, so we'll skip that part. But we do have a tactical light laser system that I need to remove. Next, we need to pry up this clip here to remove the upper section of the fore-end heat shield. It just slides forward and off. Now we need to remove this clamp. It slides forward, but it's very tight here, so I need to use a screwdriver and mallet to start it. Next, we need to remove these two takedown pins. They are spring-loaded. Push in from the right side and move the retainer over the release pin. Remove both pins. Now they can be stiff, so they may need a little prying or a mallet or a punch with wooden dowel. Next, remove the charging handle. It just unscrews. Next, again, make sure the safety is off. Then pull up on this upper section here and remove. Now you can pull the barrel up and remove it, and you can set the stock aside. Now for the upper part, there's a plastic retainer here that you just slip off the front. Then back here on the rear underside we have another clip that we move back to unlock. Mine's a little stiff, so I'm using a flathead screwdriver to push it back. There it is, unlocked. Okay, now you just pull back while lifting up and the breech bolt unit comes off and can remove forward off the barrel. The recoil spring with its short plastic rod can then be removed. Back to the breech bolt. The retaining pin, spring, and firing pin can now be removed, and that's pretty much it. By the way, there's only one firing pin spring here on this gun, but I've seen units with inner small spring as well. On this gun there's just one. As for reassembly, steps for reassembly of the Hi-Point 995 are basically just the opposite of disassembly. So let's begin by returning the firing pin spring or springs, and the retaining pin to breech bolt unit here. By the way, the firing pin and retaining pin here fits down into this clip, so make sure that it's forward and open. Return the recoil spring with its plastic rod. Return the breech bolt assembly over the barrel and into the barrel receiver assembly. Then push it back and down with the retaining pin fitting into the hole in the clip here. Once down, you can move the clip forward to lock it in place. It can be a little stiff. Return the plastic retainer from the front of the barrel and push into place. Now return the barrel assembly to the stock. It should just slip back into place. Next, I'll return this upper section with the rail and rear sight attached. Now you can return the forward clamp under here by the serial number. Again, mine's a little stiff, so I'm using a little force here. Now I can return the two pins by inserting from the right side. Push in and lock each into place by turning these retainers on the left side like this. Next, I'll return the upper heat shield 4-end piece like this and lock it into place. Then we'll return the charging handle. It just screws back into place like this. And I need to return the tactical light and laser, and I'm done. The only thing left to do is to return a magazine and check for function, and that's it. Now, as for costs, I've already mentioned that a new Hi-Point 995 has a typical price of about $250 to $450, depending on how equipped, and the Hi-Point has a wide variety of styles and configurations available. True gun value suggests a new gun average price of about $350 and a used gun average price of about $185, depending on the model and how outfitted. The basic price I've seen for a basic new Hi-Point 995 carbine in my area was a sale for just $199 recently. As such, unless you can find a good 995 well outfitted, I'd suggest just buying new and get what you want, since new prices are so low and it appears there probably won't be much of a savings buying used. Just my opinion. One more thing, the trade-in value of a used 995 is only about $120. So not much. Now, before we end today's video, I'd like to remind you, if you haven't already, be sure to like, share, and subscribe down below. And thanks for watching, and I hope you found this video helpful. Well, in summary, the Hi-Point 995 carbine is a sturdy, American-made, economical pistol caliber carbine. It may be a little heavy and look a little bulky, but it works reliably and accurately and is backed by one of the best customer services in the industry. Not only that, Hi-Point offers a downright impressive, no questions asked lifetime guarantee. Available in 380, 9mm, 40 Smith & Wesson, 45 ACP, and 10mm, Hi-Point also offers the 995 carbine in a good array of models, formats, features, and accessories. So wrapping up after almost a year of use, what do I really think about this Hi-Point 995 carbine? Well, I've got to say, at about $200 for one outfitted like this, I'm impressed and very happy with this purchase. Everything works as it should, especially after I added the spacer washer to the charging handle. Cleaned and oiled, it works as good as you'd expect for a carbine you might have paid a lot more for. And it's accurate. The 995 is indeed a comfortable and fun gun to shoot. And as a PCC chamber for 9mm rounds, range time has been easy on the pocketbook. It works out to about $3 a magazine. Not bad. Would I recommend the Hi-Point 995 carbine? Well, to be honest, I really don't have any justification not to. Indeed, the 995 may not be very pretty, but as pistol carbines go, given you have an interest in a pistol carbine, the Hi-Point 995 is truly worth taking a good look at. They work, they're tough, they're reliable, they're accurate, and they're affordable. If you include the fun factor of shooting this carbine, well, now it's just looking even better. Gun snobs might object, but yes, I'd say the Hi-Point 995 carbine is indeed worth serious consideration for what you get. Any weapon you carry is better than the one you left at home. Thanks for watching. Hope you'll be back for my next tabletop review. Until next time, stay safe.